one sad truth is that caste discrimination is still there. As much we may dislike it and we may justify it that the Varna system is not exactly discriminatory or feeling of anyone superior and inferior. How do we see all this, reconcile all this with the sad truth that caste discrimination and even caste-based violence is still there? Second is we have freedom of expression in our constitution, which should be there in every civilized society.
We don't.
Yeah, I agree. But how do we reconcile that to the fact that in the name of freedom of expression, we say Lord Ram was a misogynist. In the name of freedom of expression, we say Swami Vivekanand was a Hindu supremacist.
Right.
In the name of freedom of expression, we say Kashmiri Hinduओं के साथ ऐसा कुछ हुआ ही नहीं था. And this is a hyper toxic nationalist movie which was made. How do we reconcile these things?
So when you speak of caste discrimination, typically the conventional narrative is a one-way street. I'm saying open up the conversation. There is all sorts of discrimination going on at multiple levels by a lot of people. Talk about that. Because according to us, when the Supreme Court says even if there is one instance of discrimination, it must be treated as discrimination because individual rights is the star in the constellation of rights in the Constitution is the Supreme Court's position in Sabarimala judgment. Okay. How many instances of reverse discrimination has the Supreme Court of the Indian state taken cognizance of? Everyone who speaks of caste discrimination, and even someone like me, I'll be very blunt about this. Have you ever seen me make an argument against Article 17 which abolishes untouchability? Never. Never. I have not even sought to bring any justifications to say, no, this article needs to go. Have you seen me make an argument against Article 25(2)(b) which says that the entry of formally displaced classes into Hindu temples must be abolished? Did I say that? I've never made that statement. In fact, have you ever seen me make a single statement or argument against the existence of the SC/ST Atrocities Act? The only time I actually took a position, and it's on public record, UCC lecture, Bangalore, when they tried to boycott me, as part of that lecture, a boy from perhaps the Dalit community asked me a question, what is your position going to be on this? Will the BJP government in the garb of bringing the UCC affect our rights? At that point I said, of all the governments, the BJP government does not have the guts to do it. Nothing of that sort will happen. Your rights will be fully protected because when the Supreme Court specifically inserted safeguards within the SC/ST Atrocities Act to prevent its abuse, this government legislated it out.
Yes.
Okay? Therefore, I said, I have not even presented a position remotely challenging the existence of that legislation, despite the Supreme Court taking cognizance of multiple instances of abuse. Caste discrimination is a reality. I am not pixelating it. I am not pixelating the fact that it actually happens across the board. I have never even denied it. When I wrote the piece that even if the formulation of caste is a Western construct, so what? I actually have that email specifically saying, I told the Indian Express that you mistitled the whole damn thing because that my title was not caste as a Western construct. I said caste as a Western construct, so what? Does it change anything on the ground? That was the question that I was asking. So therefore I said, the problem starts with official fixation of the structure completely and branding it for life. That means once you enter a certain category, you're stuck with that for the rest of your life. When in fact, the movement and mobility of jatis has been different prior to its official fixation by the British man. That's where I was coming from. Now, let's assume for a moment you say, but still caste discrimination or Varna Jati discrimination existed before. Allow me to say this. Discrimination of all forms has always existed. The fact that you choose to focus your discriminatory lens exclusively on caste gives the distinct impression that all of the social structures are free of discrimination. So gender discrimination exists. Yes or no? It happens now both ways thanks to 498A. Right? Now in such a situation, shall we destroy the concept of genders altogether? But the left is already doing it, is what I've said. That's what they're saying. Right? Religions also discriminate against each or between each other. For the most part. What do you want to do? Every identity will create the concept of them and us. Then you should have a fundamental problem with the concept of identity itself. Let's start by saying Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, therefore there's no concept of family also. Because then my family, your family. What are you expected to do? I would have expected the Indian state to hit the reset button on the manner in which Indian social structure has been represented by the colonial establishment in 1947 and change the whole damn thing by saying present facts, don't pixelate anything, but don't magnify or exaggerate something. That is the position you should have taken. And that goes with the caveat, certainly have the Atrocities Act, certainly have the provision with respect to abolition of untouchability, certainly have the provision with respect to entry of formerly deprived classes into temples, have all of that. I will even go to the extent of saying, so for whatever period, reservation as a formula, if it is meant to actually address certain grievances, retain that, but don't expand it beyond that. But what has happened over the years after the Mandal Commission? It has only seen the Mandalization of the Hindu community, not consolidation of the Hindu community. It hasn't. You can't speak of annihilation of caste on the one hand and constantly speak of expansion of the pie of reservation on the other hand. And you can't say that reservation will be given exclusively on birth basis, but you have a problem with Varnashrama Dharma on the birth basis. These arguments don't fly. That means you will pick and choose a certain argument to hit out at a certain system, but you will retain everything else that you get by way of a benefit thanks to the very same system. That can't happen. That can't happen. That means you're therefore saying the existing status quo works fantastically for me because a certain piece of literature helps me constantly guilt trip you, and the benefits that come out of the guilt tripping will continue in the constitutional form. How fair is this? The very same set of people don't get to talk about caste annihilation because their entire electoral arithmetic starts and ends with jati. The day you stop it, you get to pontificate to others. But as long as you're pontificating to us on jati, and you're also having jati-based calculus for electoral tickets and ticket distribution and how do people vote, you don't get to speak of samajik nyaya and social justice at all. You're the last person who should pontificate the rest of us on the subject. I'm never going to say don't speak of discrimination. I've never said that. I will never say that. Go for ameliorative measures, but somewhere strike a balance. Somewhere strike a balance. Today you've skewed it so much that the Hindu community is now fighting like rats within itself, amongst itself, as opposed to focusing on external challenges. And that battle has proven itself to be the most important and dangerous battle in the elections of 2024, which according to me is a reflection of the future path of the Congress party. I said this before. That they have realized that this is the weak link. And then we had geniuses basically saying, that's why we are saying Jati ko destroy karo. You tried pitting Jati against Hindutva, Jati won. You should find a way to blend both. Why? Let's take the answer of what the other gentleman said. I'll explain this. Jati is a phenomenon of the subcontinent, of the Indian subcontinent, because we have all been Hindus at one point, right? And therefore the Jati identity continues. What happened during the colonial period is the exaltation of the Jati identity at the expense of the Hindu identity. Exaltation of the local identity at the expense of the Sanskritic identity, therefore leading to Jati-based movements and therefore leading to regional movements and chauvinistic movements like the Dravidian movement. The same fault line has expressed itself in two different ways. Therefore, the point is, if the other communities also have Jati, there is a very famous preacher from Pakistan who speaks on a regular basis, and apparently Amir Khan is a great fan of this man, and they met in Makkah also. This gentleman never... No, not engineer. This guy never stops saying that I'm a descendant of Prithviraj Chauhan. He never stops saying that we are Rajputs. That Nasal identity continues to exist even there. You're telling me that there are no caste-based churches in Goa or in Andhra Pradesh or in Telangana? Of course they are there. But why is it that they are not suffering from divisions? Because they are not focusing on internal divisions when they're looking at everybody else outside. We have chosen to consciously air internal divisions in public. Fine, go ahead, deal with it. But what you're doing is, you're creating enemies within and alienating insiders while constantly welcoming the outsider. And you don't have a clear sense of who the outgroup is. They do. They know who does not belong to the Muslim identity. They know who does not belong to the Christian identity. Whereas we are the ones saying, जो भी यहाँ पे पैदा हुआ, हिंदू है. DNA के basis पे. Huh? Fundamental philosophy of psychology. A community is created both by the definition of the in-group and the definition of the out-group, who belongs and who does not belong. You have muddled it fully. Don't hold the community responsible when you continue pushing the very same policy, even after 75 years. You have created a political and an economic incentive to continue exalting the local at the expense of the national and the civilizational. That is the story of post-independence Bharat.